Hi everyone, welcome to Woodfired Weekly at Manna from Devon Cooking School, where this week we're going to be cooking chicken with cider and bacon. I've got some chicken thighs here. They will crisp up beautifully on top of a reduced sauce of cider, bacon, onions and thyme. And on the side of that we're going to cook a little bit of apple caramelised in butter to go along with it. I've got the oven set up here, so I've got a hot oven and a bed of embers at the back. So I'm sitting at around about 1 to 2 Mississippi, a really nice hot oven. And I've got a pan warming up in there ready to go. I'm going to put some olive oil in here, a little bit of salt on the chicken, and then these can go straight in there, skin side down. I'm using a cast iron pan which is going to hold plenty of heat, perfect for this sort of dish. I'm going to pop those back in the oven so that they get plenty of heat from the floor, which will brown the skin and start it crisping up nicely. Whilst that starts to brown, we're going to start braising some apples. So I've got these red apples, nice sweet apples, fairly high sugar content. And I'm just going to cut these into quarters and take the core out. I can hear that chicken has got a nice sizzle going on back there. And that's a good sign. That means it'll be rendering some fat out of the skin, starting to brown it up. Also in the oven I've got a second pan warming up. In here I want to put a little bit of olive oil and some butter. A generous amount of butter because I want to toss these apples in butter so that we get them nicely coated. Going to have a quick squint under here and see what's happening with the chicken. Starting to get a bit of colour on there. The butter is melted and foaming. I'm going to toss the apples in there. Butter there, and this is just going to allow me to toss them around to make sure that the apples are nicely coated. And then these go back in the oven, and we just want to keep them with that sort of foaming butter going. Not too hot, but if they just sit there with nothing happening, then they won't brown up. So we want a little bit of a sizzle, a little bit of foam. Another little glance under here. Wonderful, that's really starting to brown up nicely now. Another couple of minutes for those. The chicken should be browning nicely by now. In the oven, of course, it's also cooking at this point. So we've definitely started the whole roasting process. And we don't have to have all the colour on these at the moment because it's going to cook more in the oven and we're going to get more colour on the chicken. Now we'd expect some fat to have rendered out of the chicken along with some juices. So if you think there's a lot of fat, you might want to take some off. But between fat and juices in there, I don't think there's a huge amount. So I'm going to leave that in there. And then we're going to add some bacon lardons. Smoked bacon lardons, even better. And some onion. And we're going to start that sizzling. And whilst that starts to sizzle, I'm just going to baste the apples with the butter. Bacon and onion should be cooked a little bit now. We're going to add a nice spoonful of whole grain mustard, a little bit of salt, a glass of cider, and some sprigs of thyme. And then we're just going to sit the chicken sort of on top of that, nestling down into the sauce. So the skin is still exposed to the heat of the oven and will continue to brown and crisp up. Those juices can go back in as well, and everything back into the oven. Just going to check these apples, see how they're doing. They're cooking nicely, Still got a little bit of cooking to do. So I'll give them another baste whilst they're out. And we're going to cook that until the chicken is nice and brown and crisped up on top. And I'll also use the probe thermometer just to check that they're up to temperature. And also we're looking to see that the sauce is nicely reduced. If the chicken is cooked but the sauce isn't reduced enough yet, we can always just take the chicken out and sit that to rest whilst we reduce the sauce a little bit. Let's have a quick look at our apple. Beautiful. You can see how that's starting to take on some colour now, and it's starting to sort of puff up a little bit. That's a really good sign that it's cooked. Not going to hurt to have another couple of minutes just to give it a little bit more colour on there. I'm going to give that one more basting. And what we're wanting here is for the butter to interact with the sugar in the apple so that that forms a nice toffee around the apple. Just a couple more minutes and I'm going to push it up close to the fire so it gets a bit of colour. And when I say fire, I mean towards the embers at the back. I don't actually have a fire burning in here at the moment. We'll take a little look at the sauce and see how that's doing. You can see the chicken is taking on even more colour and getting nice and crisp on the skin here. I expect our apple will be nicely cooked by now. Beautiful. Still got a little bit of texture to it, but just starting to collapse, as you can see, with some nice colour on there. That just needs to be kept warm now until we're ready for it. Our chicken has now had about 15 to 20 minutes in addition to that initial browning we gave it, so I'd expect it to be pretty well cooked now. We've certainly got some nice colour on there. I've got a couple of small pieces of wood here to chuck on the fire because I want to use a little bit more heat to reduce the sauce. I'm just going to check the larger pieces of chicken. I'm pretty confident that they're cooked, but just to be on the absolute safe side, we will check them with the probe thermometer, and as long as they're above 75 degrees, that's absolutely fine. These are well above that, which means they'll fall off the bone beautifully, and because it's chicken thigh and because we've been braising it like this, we won't have dried it out, so it doesn't matter if it's hotter as long as it's minimum 75 degrees. So I'm going to pop those out onto here. Lovely colour on the skin and nice and crisp. But you can see the sauce still quite liquid, and of course there's lots of juices come out of the chicken as well as everything else. So now we're going to give that a really good blast with some heat and get that reduced. It'll also give it a bit more colour. As soon as that wood is burning brightly, the heat in the oven will come up dramatically. And there we are, really not much liquid left at all, just a little bit. I'm going to take out those bits of thyme there which have done their job. I want to keep a little bit to go on top. Chicken I've just had keeping warm there in the door of the oven. My apples have been waiting patiently. So there we are, chicken with bacon and cider, caramelised apples on the side, all cooked in the wood-fired oven. If you've enjoyed this video, please give us a thumbs up. If you'd like to see a new video every week, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you've got any questions or comments, please put those below. We'll provide the recipe and notes on our website, and we'll put a link to that below the video. Thanks for watching. See you next time.